Hello and welcome to the program. I am Mary Kanu. The Department of State Services says it has identified some key political actors plotting to install an interim government in the country and frustrate the president-elect Bola Tinubu from being inaugurated on May 29. Now, according to the secret police, the plot includes embarking on violent protests nationwide to engineer the declaration of a state of emergency, as well as securing frivolous court injunctions to stall the inauguration. The service said the move being pursued by those it called entrenched interests was not only an aberration but a mischievous way to set aside the constitution and undermine civil rule, as well as plunge the country into an avoidable crisis, and described the move as illegal and unacceptable, especially after the peaceful conduct of a just concluded general elections in the country. The agitation for an interim national government became louder after the declaration of the All Progressives Congress candidate Bola Ahmed Tinubu as president-elect. The proponents said he should not be inaugurated on May 29 based on complaints by his opponents on the presidential election. Well, joining me to discuss this further is legal expert Anthony Agada. Thank you very much for joining me. Now, let's begin. The last time Nigeria had an interim government was in 1993, following the crisis of the Third Republic and exit of the then military head of state, Ibrahim Babangida. And of course, it left the nation in shambles. From a legal point of view now, how possible is it that the country will have an interim government 30 years after?
Thank you very much. Incidentally, my project in the university, when I was graduating, my project was on the interim national government, and I wrote, by God's grace, extensively on it. In this scenario we have now, it is almost impossible to have an interim national government. Okay, the differences are there. Then you had the military government that promulgated the military decree, pursuant to which the interim national government was inaugurated. And you also know, of course, that government did not last because of crisis of legitimacy and legality. So in this scenario we have now, it is almost impossible to talk of interim national government.
Well, now, for clarity's sake,
yeah.
Can you hear me?
Go on, please.
Okay, I was asking, for clarity's sake, what are the implications of an interim government, and is it possible that it could be different from that of 1993?
Yeah, well, it's okay. The point is that what we have now, we have a ground norm, which is the 1999 Constitution as amended. Okay, you cannot, for example, Section 1, subsection 2 of the Constitution says the Federal Republic of Nigeria shall not be governed, nor shall any person or group of persons take control of the government of Nigeria or any part thereof, except in accordance with the provisions of the Constitution. That is the constitutional provision. So it is, as we speak, by the constitutional provision itself, it is not possible. Are you getting me? It's not possible to talk of interim national government, because that means you have to suspend the Constitution and promulgate another law that will give a legal backing to that government. So to me, it is not practically possible. In any case, the procedure for making law now under our laws is through the National Assembly. The present government president cannot operate by decree. The scenario of 1993 is not the same as we have it now. Like I told you, I wrote extensively on interim national government in my project in the university. In 1993, we had a military government that annulled an election, okay? And because of the political upheaval, the government had to go. So the only feasible alternative was an interim government, okay? Even at that government did not last, because it was even declared nullity by a court of law then. when it was challenged by MKO Abiola. Now, in Nigeria today, we have the 1999 Constitution. We have a president that has almost completed the second term. Okay, we have a scenario where we have concluded an election, though most of us are not, we are not in support of what happened during the election. But then, election has been held, and a winner supposedly declared. Now, the position now is that the law is that if you are disputing the election, the channel, the procedure is to challenge the outcome. Okay, now by what we have in existence today, the ground norm is the 1999 Constitution, and there is no place for an interim government under the 1999 Constitution of Nigeria. So to talk of interim national government, you have to promulgate a law, okay, a legislature that will back it up. Okay, and that legislation has to contend with the 1999 Constitution. So it is almost an impossible scenario. I don't know why people are advocating for that, and I don't know why DSS had to buy into that, fall into that trap of making an announcement about it. I don't see it coming to pass.
Well, I know you've said it will be almost impossible to have an interim government, but the DSS has said the plots to impose the interim government are being planned but through protests in the country and court orders to block the transition. Is it possible to get a court injunction preventing the inauguration of Tinubu as president?
Yes, it is possible. Okay, because the court, it is possible. That it is possible, but the likelihood of it is almost zero. Okay, we have never witnessed that in Nigeria, and I doubt if that will happen. We are looking at the Court of Appeal, the Election Tribunal, and the Supreme Court giving such an order. It's going to be almost impossible for them to give. However, we cannot rule it out. Okay, but I don't see that possibility coming to pass. Now, if there is an injunction stopping the inauguration, the solution is not necessarily an interim national government. What you have is that we have the president of the Senate. That is what the Constitution says. Where it is impracticable, where the scenario of that applies, the Senate president takes over, and in an acting capacity. So I don't see an interim national. Mind you, to have an interim national government, you must have to establish a constitution, interim national government constitution, with all the features of government and the arms of government and the tenor. A lot has to come into play. As we speak now, there is nothing, okay, that has been set in place for the establishment of, for the enactment of such law. Therefore, an international government is almost impossible. We are almost in April, when will the National Assembly promulgate a law that will be signed by the president before May 29 for the inauguration of an interim national government? It is not possible.
Well, many have said that against the background of the relatively successful democratic system in the last 24 years, the idea of an interim government is a call for anarchy, while others believe that it is a solution to Nigeria's problems. But what are your thoughts on this?
Interim national government is not a solution to our problem, because any interim national government will face the issue of legitimacy. Like I told you, I wrote extensively on this in my project. We'll face the crisis of legitimacy and legality. The first question is to settle the issue of legality of an interim national government in the face of the 1999 Constitution. Are you going to abrogate the 1999 Constitution? That is the first thing. Another question is the issue of legitimacy, acceptability. That is another question. Another practical thing you are going to look at in the face of the crisis between the ruling party and the opposition. Crisis of confidence. Who is going to man the interim national government? And who are those to be appointed into that government? Who is going to head the government? How is the government going to form? It's not going to work. Okay? If we're in a military era, fine, we can say all these things are possible, but under this our democratic era, an interim national government is impossible. It's not practicable.
Well, against the many agitations, he has been declared, and he was declared president-elect by the country's electoral umpire, INEC. Well, legal expert Anthony Agada, thank you very much for your time and your contribution.
Thank you very much.
We'll take a break here, but when we return, the program will continue. Don't go away.